Alright everyone, instead of celebrating the fact that Miss USA is a black chemist, the progressive left has decided instead to autistically fixate upon one of her comments in which she said, healthcare is a privilege, not a right, which is objectively correct under the system we use, although Obamacare partially erases that. And it's still Obamacare, by the way. Ryan Care didn't pass because it was such a monstrosity, even the Republicans didn't want to pass it. Trump Care is opaque. I don't support it. It might mildly improve things, but I mean, how the fuck are we even supposed to know? So I don't approve of that. I think we need to scrap Obamacare entirely, with the exception of coverage for pre-existing conditions and extended coverage for people under parents' plans as we slowly transfer to a totally privatized healthcare system. We need tort reform. We need to privatize and the pharma monopoly, and the prices will plummet like a rock. And then people in the middle class, and indeed many of the working class, they'd be able to afford it, and they wouldn't need the government's involvement. They wouldn't need it because it'd be so much less costly. Right now you're saying, oh, pay $1,000 a month for your health care, or some insane total like that. Yeah, but plenty of people in the working class have $1,000 a month to spend on such a thing. Even when you're subsidizing it, which takes taxpayer money from small businesses and the middle and upper middle class, largely, because it's not coming from any fucking multinational corporations under the tax plans we have right now. Trump is actually trying to address that, and the left acts like that's a problem too. If you drop the price, people can finally afford it. Until then, I don't have healthcare coverage, and I don't want it. I don't want to be burdened by the bureaucracy. I don't want to be burdened by paying through the nose for something that I'm rarely going to use. Once I get to the point where I'm going to use it, they'll probably fuck around with the system and it'll no longer be in the same form anyway. Why bother? You know, my healthcare plan is I eat healthy, get my exercise, and don't abuse myself. That's my healthcare plan. It's going to work a lot better potentially than the government's healthcare plan anyway. Catastrophic surgery, something like that. Oh, well, guess I'm screwed. I'd be screwed anyway with the government's healthcare. But here's the fundamental point. You don't have a right to other people's money. And in every situation, more or less, where we federalize things, we make them national, we make them involuntary. Does it work, or does it screw things up further? Look at the educational system. Back 50 years ago, things are under the, they're heralded by the states within education. And our educational system is the creme de la creme of the whole fucking world. We've got the best scientists, the best mathematicians, the best engineers. We're churning out innovation. We're churning out invention. We developed the internet from that same generation, the last one that had a decent educational system. They were the envy of everyone in the world, and now you look at our educational system, it's kind of lacking and falling into decrepitude. Why? Because we've federalized it further with things like Common Core and No Child Left Behind. That's what's damaged our educational system. We should put that back to state control too. No power is given to the federal government to dispense such nonsense, and it clearly doesn't work. We've moved to a USSR-style education and healthcare system. Is that going to work? Long term, no. The systems will collapse. They'll either be reformed or they'll continue being more and more shitty until we've got a healthcare system on par with that of like Uganda or something like that. That's what happens. The systems will get larger, more bureaucratic, and more strangulated. But what right is given to the government to take a bunch of money, which invariably comes from small businesses in the middle class or regional business chains, as well as entrepreneurs? Those are the main sources of taxation in the country, and give it to people who are poor. You know who should be paying for that? Multinational corporations that currently pay no taxes. That could solve this problem. You could solve healthcare and education quite easily if you just started reforming the tax code so that large corporations actually pay something. Meanwhile, you could give tax relief to literally everybody else and subsidize privatized healthcare systems, and there'd be no problem. There'd be no budgetary shortfall. Slash some bureaucracy, you break even, no more debt, no more problems. Our educational system will be better, it'll be cheaper, and it'll work in every possible way. The healthcare system, it'll be more affordable, it'll be better quality. We can do this. We've had these systems in place before. It's not something that we haven't done before. We used to have that kind of educational system. We used to have that kind of healthcare system. It worked. People didn't go $100,000 into debt because they had to get an aspirin. It's ridiculous. The system that we've got now doesn't work. Centralizing it further will make the system worse. It'll make the situation worse. I applaud Miss USA But I would like to point something out for the progressives. This is not a conservative position that she's echoing. It's a libertarian position. The conservatives, so-called, within Congress, have done but fuck nothing to accomplish it. Trump is the only person within the Republican Party, other than maybe Rand Paul, maybe Amash as well, is Trump when it comes to actually having conservative views on many of these issues. When it comes to guns, the Republican Party, for 30 years, has never suggested rescinding existing gun control. They've only said no additional gun control will be passed. That's not a conservative position. That's maintaining what was already a liberal position passed by liberals, so-called, that they themselves swore up and down were the great Satan incarnate. They did nothing to solve the problem because they didn't have the balls to. Trump finally gave them their balls back and is hammering away on gun control, which is commendable. As far as his healthcare proposal, it's not conservative. Trump care, it's so opaque you can't even really tell what form it would be in anyway, so why the fuck should we even bother to talk about it? People keep wanting me to make a dedicated Trump care video. Talk about why it's a good or a bad idea. What are your thoughts on Trump care? What thoughts? I don't know what's in it. It's as opaque as Obamacare. It doesn't matter. It's shit to me. It's Greek to me. I don't know. I don't have the time to sit there and read another 10,000. I've got to read thousands of pages of occult documents. They make a lot more sense than most of what gets passed by our government anyway. That's what I'm going to be reading. Screw the healthcare system. I'm not involved in it. I don't have health coverage and I don't want it. I don't want to deal with the bureaucracy. I don't want to deal with the fact that I might end up paying into a system that never pays off because it changes form and then all of a sudden there's more regulations, more fees, it costs more, and now you can't leave it. It's like with Ryan Care. Ryan Care scraps the concept of having to pay, what was it, 2.5% added income tax for not having health coverage, which is good. But then he wants to replace it with something that says, oh, but if you get healthcare coverage and then you cancel it or lapse, you have to keep paying, what was it, like a quarter of the total cost of that company for like several years or something. It's retarded. It's also unconstitutional. It's also liberal in nature. That's Paul Ryan. Oh, the Ayn Rand conservative. Bullshit. Fuck Paul Ryan. As far as Trump care goes, I don't know. Maybe it's good. Maybe it's bad. Maybe it's better than Obamacare. Maybe it's worse. Maybe it's more or less. I don't know. Do you? You probably don't know either unless you happen to be like a healthcare industry lawyer or something like that with a lot of extra time on your hands. You work for some company that never gets sued, so you just sat down and decided to read 10,000 pages of material one day in order to get a general sense of what was in it. Okay, it's sort of like Obamacare. We're going to pass it to find out what's in it. Bullshit. Never should work that way in government. They shouldn't even be able to bring forth a bill to be voted upon until everyone has had ample time to read it. They shouldn't even be able to they need to pass an act to prevent them from doing that in the future. It doesn't matter what it pertains to. Small issue, large issue. There could be all sorts of weird pork and riders in there anyway. So it's dumb. Miss USA, a black empowered woman who happens to be an academically trained chemist, comes out, correctly identifies that under our current system, healthcare is rendered a privilege, not a right. It's not something you necessarily have some sort of fucking human right to. And they jump down her throat. They ignore the fact that she's an empowered black woman and a chemist. They ignore this completely. And once again, you have a bunch of largely white, by the way, liberals saying, oh, Uncle Tom and stuff. Then you have, of course, the black liberals saying, oh, not one of us, oh, been indoctrinated by the evil bigot Trumpites or something like that. You're morons. This is why you don't win elections. You have no idea of strategy whatsoever. These are the people, you know, the DNC is going to have to own these people. The DNC is going to have to own all the people that are basically chanting racial slurs at Miss USA for having a so-called conservative opinion that doesn't even have anything in common with the GOP. Maybe with the Rand Pauls of the party, certainly not with the bitch McConnells or the Paul Ryans of the party. Their idea of fixing healthcare is make it even more corporatocracy. Obama decides to write a healthcare law in association with Goldman Sachs and a bunch of pharma monopoly corporations, often multinational firms. Everyone chants on the left about how great an idea it is. It drives costs up. It's a bureaucratic nightmare. The rollout is totally botched, as every centrally planned approach has ever been botched. A bunch of states don't want to deal with it, go off and make their own exchanges. The Supreme Court has to render it a tax just to say it's even constitutional in the first place. This is his signature legislation, so embattled, and yet you cheer. You think it's a good thing. Obama's beyond reproach. He has a D after his name. He happens to be black, therefore he's beyond reproach. What about Miss USA? Has she ever said, oh yeah, I'm a rock-rib conservative, praise Trump? No, she's correctly identifying that healthcare is a privilege. It is. You have the privilege of getting healthcare coverage. Tell the government to privatize it so you can afford it if you're so fucking concerned. If it wants to give subsidies to people who are dirt poor, I have no problem with that. I have no problem at all. We've been doing that anyway. Even under our pre-socialized healthcare system, we had that concept. That's not a problem. But forcing people to pay in for no reason, you don't ask the multinational corporations to pay in. The Democrats never do. They deliberately structured our modern tax code so that those corporations that give them so many millions in campaign contributions pay but fuck nothing. They pay zero. Small businesses pay for your health care. They're the ones subsidizing the poor. Small mom and pop stores, regional chains, entrepreneurs, and the upper middle class, and some of the middle class. They're the ones subsidizing it. Subsidizing the working class and the poor. Why don't you ask the multinational corporations to subsidize it? They're the ones that have all the money. You always complain about how evil they are. They're not environmentally friendly and workers' rights abuses, won't let them unionize. Look at Walmart or McDonald's or whatever. Why don't you lean on them? Why don't the Democrats try actually caring about the working class and the middle class and all these other groups? Right now, the Democrats, their operative strategy is pit the poor and the working class against the middle and upper middle class and entrepreneurs and small businesses. This is going to be some great thing. It's a great idea. And they leave the multinationals alone, the banks and the big corporations and all the truly super rich, the George Soroses, because they're the ones that fund the whole friggin' party apparatus. They bow down to them. They take it up the ass from them. Meanwhile, they'll complain about how Miss USA has one opinion they disagree with, so they're this is a bad person. Ignore the fact that she's an empowered black woman chemist. Like, that would have been your sacred cow. Under any other circumstance, if she hadn't voiced this opinion, they'd be talking about how it's wonderfully progressive that the person who won was black. They'd still be, like, kind of smarmy about it and patronizing, as they always are, towards people who aren't white. Like, that really, I think, rubs a lot of people the wrong way anyway, but instead they just turn around and attack her. This is why you don't win elections. Your strategy sucks. It's no wonder Trump won. You've got nobody but yourselves to blame. You don't even realize it. You want to keep finding some friggin' scapegoat. It's Russia. It's James Comey. Blah, blah, blah. Oh, take responsibility for yourselves, you fucking whiners. That's who's responsible. It's you. It's not even just Clinton. It's the Democrats themselves. It's the progressives themselves. It's their oppression Olympics. It's their constant desire for censorship and for systems that they think are utopian stuff and they just don't work. That's your problem. You know, you shouldn't have gone back to the 90s. You should have gone back to the 1960s. But you didn't think to do that. Now you suffer and now you want to blame everyone else. The evil bigots. Uncle Tom, Miss USA, something like that. All these people criticizing Bill Nye. Build a platform and stop whining, and maybe you'll actually continue to survive as a party, as an ideology, and not be totally cast aside. Why don't you use some intelligence there? Miss USA is. She correctly identifies, yeah, healthcare's a privilege. You think that that's some horrific thing to say. It's not. It's the way we've done business for centuries. And it's going to keep being the way we do business, hopefully, because otherwise you're not going to like the healthcare system. And people start dying because they don't even have access to the right medication. Yeah, then at some point you'll think twice about it, thinking that centralizing it further is going to solve the problem. It's not. It won't solve the problem. It'll make it worse. Watch what happens. Go ahead and try it. Go ahead and try it and see what happens. A lot of the entrepreneurs will just friggin' leave the country. They'll go to Canada or Mexico or something. Go to the Philippines, to Thailand. They'll move to a low-tax place, like Germany or something. They'll consider Western Europe to be low-tax and really a fun place to be. You know, overridden as it is by people who keep blowing things up. It'll still be better. Still be better. Educational system in this country has been turned into a joke by socialism. Now they're trying to go after the healthcare system. They're trying to indoctrinate people when they're young and then control them by, you know, withholding, you know, medical services, make them more reliant on the government teat or something. Suppress everyone, and you won't have an upper middle class and a lower middle class. Everyone will just be lower class. Everyone will just be peasants. What a wonderful utopia. Sounds so wonderful. You'll be equal in your misery. That's what they want. That's about all. Peace out.